What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is season 4, episode 15. And if you were to open the Webster's Dictionary and go through and find a Renaissance man, there would be a picture of Reeve Carney under that. Dude, thanks so much for doing this, man. I'm super pumped to talk to you.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
You've got, dude, you're the epitome of Renaissance man. I mean, you've got your hands in so many different things, and like you're so creative. It's all inspiring to watch what you've done since I've first heard Carney in 2008. I've been following the journey.
Yeah, that's crazy. When we officially met, maybe over Instagram, what was it? Maybe like 2-3 months ago, something around there. I had no idea that you had ever seen us play. That's so cool. I think was the first time you saw us, probably in that zone, or maybe it was 2000. Yeah, probably around there. Yeah.
It was 2008 or 2009. It was like right before I started as a student at Berkeley. That was my second degree,
Oh,
so I went
nice.
back as an older student. But
wow.
I just remember my wife and I had just moved to Boston. It was pretty early. I'd only been there for a month or two, and then you guys came through. And my friend George Stanford, who's a Philly musician, was opening, I think. And he played his thing, and then you guys came on, and the first song you played, I think, was Imperial Lover, and I was like, oh my God, this is my jam.
Oh, wow.
This band is the band that I want to see, because like I'm a huge power pop guy and rock. Like, are you into like Jellyfish at all and that stuff?
Yeah, I was just gonna say at that time we were. I think a lot of us were definitely listening to a lot of Jellyfish, especially the Spilt Milk album. When we were making our album, and there were some things that were definitely inspired by that.
Oh, dude, for sure. I mean, you guys were just such a.
I was like.
Oh, sorry, Reeve, you froze a little bit. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. Just saying. I think Jason Faulkner and those guys. We grew up listening to a lot of the same stuff too. So I discovered them later, but it was kind of like I sort of in a way discovered them through the Beatles, Queen, and the Beach Boys, and I was like, oh, these guys. Well, obviously they love. You can hear all those influences in their music as well.
Oh my God, yeah, 100%. Well, you guys, I mean, it blew me away, and I bought a CD that night, and then you guys came out with your full length album shortly after that, like a year or so after that, I think, something like that. And then you came back to the Middle East, and I went back to see you guys and brought a bunch of my friends, and it's just like the music's just so deep, like harmonically speaking, like your guys' knowledge of harmony and how you arrange the music. I mean, I was just like, oh wow, this is so down my alley, man. So like props to you guys. I mean, I hope, is there going to be any more Carney music like in the future, do you think?
There could be. I mean, we haven't had a plan to do that, but it's definitely possible. I guess it's just hard finding the time to get everyone together. In the same space.
Totally.
And yeah, it's just the industry of it all is so interesting to me. It's an odd business. It's like it's great when it works, when everything kind of coalesces and comes together. In terms of art and commerce meeting, I guess. But those don't happen to naturally. For me, if those don't happen to naturally happen, I have a tendency to get a bit frustrated with it because you end up, rightfully so, the people who are involved on a financial level, they deserve a return on their investment. But if you have a different vision artistically from those people, it gets really, really challenging. And the more people involved, the more you potentially need that sort of support from like a bigger system. So it's an interesting thing. I'm impressed with the people who are able to seemingly be extremely happy with putting out music that becomes extremely popular, because it's an interesting. There's such a narrow. I feel like there's such a narrow region in which someone can be completely musically satisfied and appeal to that huge base. But that's always the dream. You that's what you want to do.
Right. Is the acting side of the industry, have you found that's way more like doable for you than the music side of the industry? Like, does it seem like acting seems a little bit easier, more cut and dry than the music side of things?
Yeah, I found a really nice sweet spot now because I'm the thing that's wonderful is that each character, I don't feel the same sense of possession maybe or ownership over like a character as I do, or a musical or a play or a TV show or a film or whatever, as I do a song. Uh, and so you're kind of used to being told what to do and have people help you with that. But it's I find it to be challenging when. So I think it's nice. There's like a freedom you can like. I find it easier a bit. I find it a little bit easier to let go with acting because you know it's just for this one character. You're doing this one thing, and it's just one aspect. So when it's your own songs, it feels like someone else is telling you how to raise your children. I find that to be really challenging.
Yeah, I
So I
bet.
think it's psychologically nice for me to be like, oh yeah, I can totally experiment, and it's somewhat easier to be uh, more deeply collaborative. I think in the acting world, maybe
Mm.
because it's not being generated all the impetus of it isn't coming from you. You know, I think it might be a challenge. Like for instance, if I were to write a show that I was also in, and then someone was directing me in that show, I think that could be challenging because I'd be like, but no, no, but this is kind of. So I guess that's kind of part of the challenge with music. But I have a nice sweet spot now because I've thankfully because of all the stuff in the acting world. I play this club actually playing this weekend, the Green Room 42 in New York City, and it's really awesome because it's kind of the dream because it's like a 144 seat venue and the people that come just they all are there to listen, so it's like it's great, and I really enjoy that. I mean, it's kind of I don't know, I still have the dream to play Madison Square Garden and all that stuff, but I don't know if that would be necessarily even more fun than playing a venue of like 150 people that are really really listening, because that's just great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's like the whole Molly Malone situation you guys had going on with the residency,
Yeah,
right? You know, that kind of
yeah,
vibe.
yeah, yeah,
So that's
and I
rad.
did, yeah. This is yeah, it's kind of I guess it is kind of like that. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, and next
So
time you
people
play,
actually can eat and drink and yeah.
yeah, totally. I love those kind of shows too, man. And like intimate, and you can do things dynamically so different. If you're, especially if you're by yourself, you can take
Yeah.
things in a different direction. I mean, I can totally see you loving that. Um, and you're not that
Yeah.
far. I got to check out next time you're playing up there because I mean, you guys, I mean, New York's like I'm in
Oh
Baltimore,
yeah.
man. It's like only 3 hours away.
Mm,
I got to try to bring up
yeah.
some of my
You're
friends.
Baltimore. You're in Baltimore, but you're commuting to Boston.
I work remotely for Berkeley, yeah, which
Okay.
is
Okay.
great
Cool. Okay. I was like, wow,
because my whole
that would be.
family,
Jeez.
yeah, my whole family is here in Maryland. So like I lived
Oh
in
yeah.
Boston for a while and then we moved back here. When we had my daughter, we moved back here. So,
Oh
which has been
nice.
great.
That it's nice. I
Speaking,
like.
go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, I love it. Then that, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, speaking of family, so I kind of know you come from a very musical family, right? So, can you
Yeah.
tell me? I usually ask people Reeve like as my first question, but I was obviously too excited to talk about Carney. Um, but what's your earliest musical memory? Like, do you have like a super far back, like boom, like memory that kind of launched you into loving music?
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily. It might not be the earliest musical memory necessarily. It might not be the absolute earliest, but definitely the most impactful. And it was really, really special. But because my girlfriend Eva just took me to see this performer for the first time ever at Madison Square Garden. I'd never seen him live, but when I was 8, I remember being in the back of my parents' Chevy Suburban, and like the radio was on, and it was the first time I had ever heard Billy Joel's "The Longest Time" came on, and I was just like, "What the heck is this?" And I don't know if the people watching, if they all would necessarily say this about me, but I have a huge like love for vocal harmony, and so I do a lot of that. I think I do a lot of that on my recordings at least. But I yeah, I mean I love the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Queen, and but I didn't even really know who they were yet. Actually, I wasn't really. I honestly couldn't tell you who like if a song came on, but when I was 8 years old, I don't think I would have even known that a song was the Beatles at that point. And in fact, I remember when I started playing guitar, when I first heard about Jimi Hendrix, I always connected the name Jimi Hendrix with the image of Buddy Holly. I don't know why. It's so weird, but I
Interesting.
somehow can mix them up. And it was weird. The other, like 2 days ago, I was reading an article, uh, and it had Buddy Holly, and then the next guitarist mentioned was Jimi Hendrix, and I was like, that's so weird. I wonder if that's how this happened. I saw something like that and just mixed it up, and where the name for Buddy Holly's name was on the bottom of his picture, and Jimi Hendrix's picture was right below that. So it maybe I got
Yeah.
confused. I don't really know, but yeah, that was the first time when I just hearing those vocal harmonies and be like, oh man, the yeah, just I had not heard that before, that sort of thing. I know he was borrowing from the doo-wop era, which I was not yet familiar with either. But so it was like a 50s throwback in the 80s. It's really cool. I
Yeah.
just I didn't know what I was listening to, and that really made me think, geez, this is really interesting. And then I got Billy Joel's Greatest Hits. That's the first cassette tape that I asked my parents to buy for me.
Heck yeah. Dude, and it doesn't surprise me because like your sensibility for melody, when you're writing music, like I know like as a songwriter too, I know sometimes things can come before the other, but like do you pull first from melody? Like do you find a melody that you really love and then you kind of put harmony to it? Like how do you usually work when you're writing?
Yeah, usually because like I said, my love for the Beatles, I've studied them so much and read as many books as I can on them. And I remember reading something, maybe just an interview with Paul McCartney's, saying that the only song he had ever written the lyrics to first in the Beatles catalog was All My Lovin'. And that might include all of his catalog, Wings and Beyond. But I related to that because I think the only song in which I wrote lyrics before any melody or harmonic structure is a song called Looking Glass that I put on my album Youth is Wasted. And it's on like an EP that I had from a long time ago too, different version of it. But so I generally don't do that. But I think I should try to do it more because it's an interesting way to approach things. But generally for me, like a melody will come into my head, or I will sit at the guitar or piano and just play sort of chords. There's a song that we had on Mr. Green Volume 1 called Nothing Without You. And the
Mhm.
bridge to that, I actually have to think what the chords actually are. But I know it starts G minor and then goes to B major. And that was inspired by like, one of my favorite classical, well, technically not classical, but orchestral music composers, I guess, Richard Strauss. Um, and the movement of I guess in that way, it was almost like letting melody came second or maybe simultaneously, but I just really wanted to find some bizarre chords that would support a sort of a melody that's not necessarily particularly dramatic in terms of its intervallic movement, but it feels incredibly dramatic because of the chord clusters underneath it. And so
Yeah.
I like that. I do that, search for chords and go, oh. And then sometimes it's interesting to get like a very simple melody. I guess this is like what a lot of the jazz guys and gospel guys do. Like, I guess in a way, it's almost like reharmonization of a song uh, before it's even a song. So it's not really a reharmonization, but that's kind of how it's being approached because you might be going da 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 da, but then underneath it's like what's happening there? There's some kind of it's not what you would expect, you know.
Yeah.
I like that too.
That's what I liked about your music, especially like a song like that, like Nothing Without You, like how it starts so aggressive and then it just gets into this
Oh yeah,
like the groove of that song, like you don't expect it to go in that direction. And I find that really, really lovely about how you write music and how you guys put music together. And
thank you.
yeah,
That kind of goes back to some of my frustrations I was mentioning before because that's the challenge because I would rather appeal to a smaller, more focused base of people who it really excites. But it's a tough road to walk sometimes because the things that you're mentioning and things that I love, oftentimes, you know, people who are not necessarily on the music side of the work that's known as this industry, they don't, you know, they don't always necessarily they might intentionally steer you away from things like that, and it
Mm-hmm.
gets to be frustrating. But I do, and part of it, I grew up listening to so much jazz. I mean, blues is my real foundation, but listening to all that jazz, yeah, it's just, I guess I love that kind of. I love being surprised. I really don't like to feel too comfortable when I'm listening to music. Sometimes I do, but generally, if I'm going to be really listening, like I don't want to go to a concert and I don't want to sing along to anything that that person's doing. I want to just listen to them because I want to be. I want them. I want to see them do something that kind of like is specific to them, and that's why it's so exciting, I guess. As opposed to it's insane. I have so many thoughts about this. I mean, all these game shows that have come out in the last like 20 years have kind of changed things, I think, a little bit, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
And
I like those too. I enjoy watching those sometimes.
yeah, no, I mean it's weird because music as astute as yours, you know, and I feel like can get over some people's heads. It's because it's like it's almost like people have to be force fed what's hip or something. I don't know what it is about it, but like I find that to be like a struggle. I would argue with someone as to why they should listen to your music or Carney or whatever iteration you're doing because of the fact that you can really be exposed to, you know, a melding like a melting pot of all these different genres that you pull from, whether it be blues or soul or jazz or funk or pop or whatever it is. Like I love when you just throw everything in a box and you
Thank
shake it
you.
around, you
Yeah, me
know.
too.
It's
I
just
love when people do that as well. Yeah.
because if you listen to a record, I don't know if you feel this way, but if you listen to something and every song has the same groove, same vibe, it's a drag, man. I want to hear somebody on one album have a rockin' tune, a blues tune, you know, a ballad, like a really cool hip ballad. Like that stuff is what keeps me coming back to those
Right.
artists, you know?
And then there are some things that are like for me that I also absolutely love. But I think you would probably say these also have these things. That there's certainly uh, incredible artists that are like doing something that it's just a. I don't know. I'm trying to think what it is. It's how do I put it? Because I love an album also that has like one kind of flavor, but obviously it's not boring in those settings. Like something like I'm obsessed with like Ray LaMontagne's first two albums in particular, and Nora Jones's
Oh
"Come
yeah.
Away with Me," and those are kind of like it's a color palette that kind of feels like, but there's maybe it's just so natural. Maybe that's what I love about those albums and just the musicianship and like it's the respect for space. I think is another thing I love too. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, there's
I love both. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think a good example of one that I love that's the same is like Beck's Sea Changes.
Oh
That
yeah.
that
Yeah.
album, holy crap, dude. Like the whole way through. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like my rainy day record. Like, do you have a rainy day album that you put on? Like that's my rainy day
Yeah,
record.
I would put that on. I definitely blues always seems to work like stuff from like the 60s and earlier. But yeah, that and actually our friend David Campbell, Beck's who's actually Beck's father, he did all of the arrangements for that.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Like all
I
strings and
love
stuff?
how yeah. I that's one of my favorite Paper Tiger is like one of my favorite mixes
Oh.
because it's so audacious. It's like you're gonna really make those strings that loud. This is awesome, man. I mean, like, why? Like, I love bold mixes like that. It's just, the Beatles did that a lot, and part of it was kind of a joke. I learned from reading Jeff Emmerich's book Here, There, and Everywhere. Um, it's because mono mixes were that was the primary way in which consumers were consuming music and listening to music then, and stereo was pretty new, like in the mid 60s or early to mid 60s, and so up until like 1965 I think all of the stereo mixes that you hear on Beatles recordings were like done in like a half an guitar, he said. And they were just throwing stuff left and right just to be like, oh yeah, this is like, that's why you hear all these hard pan things, which are, I'm obsessed with. I mean, and actually it frees up a lot of space in the mix too. But it's funny. And then when you get to Jimi Hendrix, it's like, people were, I have a friend, he's sadly no longer on the earth, but the guitar tech for Johnny Lang's band, when I was playing Johnny Lang, Eric Cartwright, he was actually an amazing guitar player too, and played a band called Foghat. But he was telling me that he made me listen to the Hendrix records in sequence, because he said you've got to listen to them as they came out, like I got to listen to. And he said, you know, at that point, or actually he might not have even said this, but maybe it was the liner notes. I think it was something Jimmy said about realizing that people were really listening on headphones at that point. So they were really going for stuff in the mix then with the psychedelic movement.
Yeah.
And that's really cool too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. It's funny that you bring up Johnny Lang, because here's another little aside. When I was at Berkeley, I'm a guitarist, but I was taking piano stuff too. And one of my professors put a sheet of music in front of me and was like, let's listen to the song first and then we'll work on it. And it was Thankful.
Oh yeah, love that song.
And I hadn't really listened to Johnny too much before then. I was aware of him obviously as a blues guitarist, but like, and then when I got into that record, there's two albums that really changed my life musically. It's that album and it's D'Angelo's Voodoo.
Oh yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah. And both of which I was late to the game, which my professors exposed me to. And then already being a fan of you and everything, when I saw you were touring with him and opening the show, I was like, dude, yes. Like, you know, those moments when you just like cheer on people that you want to succeed kind of thing. But how did that happen? How did you come into contact with Johnny and get in that group?
I wonder if I gotta find. I don't think I have the picture right now, but I gotta find. I have to put it up. I keep meaning to. I don't know why I haven't. I've had it for years. But so my brother Zane, he was a very successful child actor. Like, I say that because it was something that I was interested in from a young age, and I just didn't get any jobs at that point. So, but Zane did, and our whole family moved to LA because of that. And so then we were in these like child actor circles because of that, and a bunch. So I ended up dating one of the girls who was like one of the older. She was not someone we would hang out with really, but I became very close to their family and remain to this day very close to them. But so it was during that time that he was opening for Aerosmith, and I was obsessed with Aerosmith. So I got invited by another friend of mine to come to this concert at I think it was still called the Irvine Pavilion or something, or I forget what it's called now, or maybe that's what it's called now. But it's in Irvine, California, and maybe it's Meadowlands. I'm not. But I went there, and that night I ended up getting to go backstage and meeting Johnny. So I met him. I remember the day because I'm very specific with numbers as well for some reason. But it was October 18th, 1997. That's when I met Johnny. And it was weird because I met a lot of people that I'm still really close to that same day, but at the concert, like his crew and people like that. But I remember like 6 months earlier, where I grew up here in the city, walking around the corner, and one of my dad's friends, who's also a musician, told me that it was during that Eric Johnson, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani the first G3 tour.
Yeah.
I think it was like. So I remember like I was reading Guitar Player and Guitar and all these different magazines that were out at the time, and seeing all the ads, and I think he pulled up an ad and said, "Do you know about this guy?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You got to check him out, man. He's playing Madison Square Garden tonight with Aerosmith. His name's Johnny Lang." So 6 months before I met Johnny, my friend David Goldman, musician and a manager of artists, that's his job, he had told me about Johnny. And so it was kind of crazy actually meeting him 6 months later. But from that point, like about 2 months later, I was playing this blues club where I had to play. It's called Smoky Donnie Blues, Booze, and Barbecues on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City, California. And now it's like a fancy restaurant called Firefly. But that's where I learned to play really, like, I guess, sort of from a feeling perspective, I guess. And one night, my friends Ashley and Haley, who is now Johnny's wife and mother of his children, um, and Nancy, their mom, brought Johnny in to surprise me, and so that was crazy. So we actually sat in together. He sat in with me, sitting in with this band that night. That was crazy, and I have a picture of that. So that was my whole point.
Oh
That I've
man.
got a picture of that. That was really cool, and that's where we really began our friendship. Like when I was 14 and he was 16. But honestly, like when he was 16, to me he seemed like a grown man, and I was like a little kid. But within a couple of years, because we're only 2 years apart,
Right.
it's funny. But yeah, that's so we've been friends. I mean, I've been friends with Johnny for that's great. I mean, I guess I've been friends with him for almost 25 years, which is insane.
Man, I did not know that. That's so cool. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you were on tour during that album too, really. I mean, that was like touring that record, wasn't it? Like
Yeah,
Turnaround?
it was great. I mean, and actually that song, like, let me see if I didn't plan any of this, but I think the if I remember, I'd love that riff. The I just always have, if I remember, it was something like, what was it? How did it go? Because it's hard without the bass part.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
I'm
mm,
thankful.
yeah.
I haven't played that since that tour, but that was one of my favorite songs to play actually.
Yeah. That record, I mean, especially the first half of that record, the stuff that's all up, like the
Yeah, Bump
like
in the Road.
bump. Oh
Yeah, and
man.
yeah, and then I really love the chain, One Person at a Time.
Oh yeah. That record, it's recorded amazingly. Like the
Yeah,
everything just sounds big and ballsy. It's just like
I
it's
think that
great.
might be one of Johnny's favorite records too.
Really.
Maybe,
That
yeah.
that and what was the record right after that? Fight oh my god.
Oh yeah, is that the one that came out in 2013, right? Or was it the very next studio album? It might have been Fight for
Yeah.
My Soul. Yeah,
Yeah. That is a killing record too, man.
yeah. And
Mm,
I grew up really obsessed with, well, both Lie to Me and, but maybe even more so, Wander This World. I like, not both. I mean those were huge for me growing up because they were before I was in his band. And I
yeah.
was just like obsessed with. I mean, I can't believe like the guitar playing that he was doing when he was 15 or 16. It's just insane. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The melodic solos that he was coming up with, like that song
Yeah.
Matchbox.
Yeah.
That solo is one of my favorite solos from that album, probably. But it's
Yeah.
just crazy.
He really goes for it too. And I love the fact too that he's such a fuzz guy too. Like
Yeah,
I mean, I love fuzz. I have an addiction, Reeve. So, to
yeah,
fuzz. We can talk about that too. Let's get on that tip too, because I want to, outside of all the amazing stuff you've done acting, Penny Dreadful and on Broadway and everything. Also, I'm a huge Marvel geek too. So you were Spider-Man. So you won again with me, Reeve.
yeah.
When you
Even
did
I
that.
actually just watched No Way Home last night. We had never seen it.
Oh, it's good. It was good, man,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah, it was
super
cool.
fun.
I mean, I gotta watch it again. I was pretty tired at the end of it, but I think she fell asleep before the very end. But I gotta, yeah, it was really cool. It was
Yeah.
fun seeing them all together. It's so weird.
Oh my god, yeah, dude. Super fun. I watched the Batman last night with Robert Pattinson
Yeah,
finally. Did
yeah,
you see that?
yeah. We saw that. We went to the theater. It's the first time we've been to the theater in like a couple of years.
Oh man, they did such a great job. I love how this iteration of Batman was like detective Batman.
Oh
Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
like it wasn't just like, Basham fighting all the time, like
Right.
gadgets and stuff. You got to see him like his brain work and like how he was a detective really.
Yeah, and it was interesting what they did with the score too. One thing I really liked about it was that it reminded me a bit of Eyes Wide Shut. That
Yes.
that score, like, but it, but well, I did miss. I mean, the Danny Elfman like original themes,
Mhm.
but it's interesting because it has to have been intentional. Maybe not. It would be interesting if it wasn't. But they took, because like in the Danny Elfman thing, the
The main theme, like the
yeah,
dun,
like the
dun,
flat
dun,
six to the,
dun.
yeah,
Yeah.
when it goes to the five, they inverted that in this because like
I
I
heard
thought
that
that,
too.
yeah, and I was like, that, it just kept doing that. And it's interesting. I'm guessing it was on purpose because it's like keeping with that. I love that original thing, and I wonder if that was. I haven't seen an interview with the composer. I should look it up because I bet that it's probably intentionally to change it up. But
I think it was, and I think they were given a little sauce from that, and I think they were also kind of mirroring the Something in the Way
that was,
changes,
yeah. Oh
you know?
yeah, yeah. I didn't think about the. Yeah,
Something.
that's interesting. I wonder if
Yeah.
that's why they went to that. I thought that worked very well. And it almost sounded like, was it augmented with some additional production? I don't remember it sounding that heavy, that song.
It
I
seemed
gotta
like
listen
there
back
was
to from the record.
yeah, it seemed
Yeah.
like there was, but, I don't know. It seemed doctored a little bit from what I could tell,
Like
but
maybe the string, maybe it was strings. Maybe that's what I gotta listen. I just
yeah.
don't, I didn't know that from the original. It feels so much, yeah,
It's so ominous. It
heavier, I
works
guess.
so well in that movie.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Reeve, so that your 335, do you still have that 335? That's like that walnut.
Oh yeah.
Uh, is so. Can you tell me the story on that guitar? Because you've had that probably the longest that I've seen you with that guitar the most. I think throughout my
Yeah.
time watching you.
Yeah. I haven't been playing it recently, mainly because I was giving my other new guitar a chance, which I was blown away that it has been as exciting as it has been. Because so the one I'm playing now, the Les Paul, I found out that I wanted to get another backup because I found out I think they only made maybe 100 of those things, which is totally crazy. But it's I got a really good deal on it, and so I wasn't even sure if it was going to be as great as it is because I wanted something, a backup for my 335 that was like kind of in the zone but a little bit different. And I bought it from this one. I bought from Emerald City Guitars, which is a great store in Seattle that I've been to a number of times. But I bought this online while living in New York here, and they shipped it, which is awesome. But so the 335 I bought at, man, my favorite, like one of my favorite stores in LA that's no longer there. It was run by, I don't know, they might have an online store. I gotta check, but a guy named John Nelson, guitar player, and his son Chris Nelson. I used to basically live there uh, in like the early 2000s, and it's funny because I finally had a chance to meet this guy that they used to tell me about, because when I was like 19 or 20, I'd go in there and just based on my sensibilities and like me noodling on playing stuff, they go, you know what, man, you gotta meet Blake. And I was like, oh, who's that? And they're like, he's a kid who comes in here. I think you guys really like each other. And so I found out years later that that was Blake Mills. And
I was gonna say it's Blake Mills.
I finally met him. Like we almost worked together on something, on a film project actually, like a couple years ago. But so far we have not worked together. But that would be great. And I know Zane's a big fan of his too. We both are. But that was pretty cool because he would have been like 16 when I was in, when we were crossing paths in that store. But so I bought that guitar at a store called it was called Vintage Gear, and I think it was just called Vintage Gear or Vintage Gear Hollywood, but it was on Sunset in the old Freedom Guitar building, which was like from the 90s. It was called Freedom Guitars, which was across like catty corner to the Mesa Boogie store, which I think I heard is not there, which stinks.
That does stink.
But like
I
just
love
down
that
the
show.
street from Guitar Center. Yeah. And Mesa Boogie store, that's where I bought my first Zvex pedal
Nice.
in like 2002, I think. Maybe three, but no, I think two. But yeah, but I used to go to LA Vintage Gear all the time. It's where I bought my first Echoplex. I have two of those EP2s, which I love those. And I actually got to, because of those guys and their relationships with people and how they were just so cool. They introduced me to Mike Battle, who is the inventor of the Echoplex. And so I got to talk to him on the phone before he passed away. He like
Whoa.
he was in his probably high 80s at that point, or mid 80s, and he was so nice. And he was just excited that somebody that was like 20 years old was excited about his invention from like 50, 60 years earlier.
Right.
That was like, of course I'm excited about that. I mean, I guess maybe he did. I don't know, or he's just a nice person, but he was very nice. And yeah, so I bought a lot of great stuff there. But what I did do is I it was the first guitar I played. A 335. For whatever reason, I don't remember why I was looking. Oh no, I know why. Another favorite guitar player of mine is a guy who also has sadly passed away way too young. He was an acquaintance of mine, a guy named Sean Costello. Do you know
No, I
Sean?
don't know that name.
He has a number of amazing records that you can listen to. He was an amazing singer and guitar player, and came up in that sort of Johnny Lang, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Monster Mike Welsh era, when they were all kind of like, yeah, like 14 or 15 years old, then slaying on the guitar. But yeah, Sean passed away when he was like 28. But he, I was sort of chasing his tone from a record that he played on with a band called Olabelle that I also love, from 2004, just self-titled Olabelle. And there's a song called No More My Lord that he plays this incredible solo on. And I was like, whoa, what is that tone? I knew he played actually something more similar to this. He played a gold top. But I found that I got closest to that tone with a 335 at the time. And so I played like 15 335s in the Los Angeles area of varying prices. And that was the first one I played. And I went back, and it was just the one that I ended up wanting. Of all the ones I played, that was my favorite.
Oh, I love it. I've heard it's tough to find a 335. Like you got to play a bunch of them to find the right fit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's weird.
might be. Yeah.
I'm looking right now. I'm looking for a 335 or like a 349, like a Freddie King or like a
Oh yeah.
335. But it's weird because I've played a bunch and I even tried like a Heritage because I'm like, oh, this is cheaper,
Yeah.
you know. And the bridge pickup just felt anemic. It just didn't have that bite, you know.
Honestly, mine, I feel the same. I actually feel that way about mine. I've never really used the bridge pickup much on the
Interesting.
335. But
Okay.
and actually it wasn't until I got this gold top with the P90s that I started playing a lot out of phase position.
Ah.
Although that's not totally true. On Johnny's tour I did that a lot. Like what I found worked best for the turnaround tour was the 335 out of phase with both volumes set to about 8.
Hmm.
And both volume controls. That was like that's how I got those tones. And I think I had like a super duper 2-in-1, the first channel, which I actually have here because I've been like
Nice. Nice.
this is in good shape too. I had to buy another one because my other one accidentally got trashed.
Beat the crap
But
out of it.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
love that build. But yeah, I
Man.
think it was that, just like for a little bit of a boost.
So you've kind of always been into gear then. Like
Oh
you've had
yeah.
your and stuff. So like so when all this happened, when you really start like when's the first time you actually were soldering and like trying something? Like how like is this very recent or is this like you've been doing that forever and you just
Yeah, no, the first time would have been when I was maybe like 18, like 19, maybe something like that. But I didn't take it. The only thing I'd ever soldered before starting what I've been doing a lot of now, designing pedals and building them, uh, was speakers, like into my amp, like soldering speakers in and out. Like it was very limited, and I didn't really have a really great soldering iron. It was like one of those ones that has no temperature setting, and you just plug it into the wall, and like it was very simple. But yeah, not so that's pretty new. I mean, but it just, one of the really positive things for the pandemic for me was that I had so much time with absolutely no, like nothing to there's no way I could do the stuff that I was used to doing
Yeah.
because, well, one thing I'm not huge onto, like the technology associated with like preparing for a live stream, especially a musical performance. It's kind of stressful to me. I don't know if some people are great at that, but it's like there's so much stuff happening that
Yeah.
I'm not in control of, and it really kind of, whereas like building pedals is kind of the opposite. Like you're kind of in control of your own world in this. I found it to be very therapeutic. And I had people saying things to me, which is very very nice. Like talking about um, actually, even I saw this. Well, I know you can say it outside of it, but I say, well, Scottish play. We saw the Scottish play last night, Um, and our friend is in it, and it's starring Daniel Craig as well and Ruth
Oh
Negga.
wow.
And that was amazing. But they mentioned that actually at the top of the show, uh, like the Great Plague of like the 17th century, that Shakespeare wrote that show along with what was the other show? One other show and King Lear. And I had heard that people were talking about that a lot during the pandemic, like, hey, Shakespeare did this during this pandemic, so what are you gonna do, sort of thing. But I found I was like not inspired to write music at all during the pandemic in the beginning because I was honestly afraid. I don't know, maybe I just overreacted, but I I wasn't sure we'd ever go back to live performance. That sounds crazy, but I really felt that way. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like it felt so totally crazy to me. And so because it was just, especially living in New York City, everything was shut down completely. So it was like I didn't know people could actually do this. Like I didn't know that the government could actually shut things down like this. And
Right.
so if they can do it, then I was like, well, they could probably stop us from ever, because people were saying there's everyone in our theater was like, oh no, not everyone, but some people were like, no, it'll never shut down. It's the Broadway industry brings way too much into the New York economy. There's no way they would ever let it shut down. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, they did, and I get, so yeah, and it's, obviously it's good because health is way more important than money. But I just yeah, for that reason I was like, oh man, I did reading, watching the news every day. It was like, what is gonna happen? So I wasn't inspired to write music. So I was like, what am I gonna do with it? And
Right.
I saw an interview with Jack White with Zane Lowe recently, and it sounds like he kind of had a similar feeling in the beginning. He just wasn't really inspired to make any music.
They
So
just
he
made
started working on his
furniture,
furniture
right?
again. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
That's so
I
cool.
relate to that because it's like there's just something really therapeutic about building something and being able to see it finished. Because a song, like, unless you're going to record it fully or perform it, it doesn't really necessarily feel finished. I don't know. It does, but there's something about the performance process that makes it feel complete. And
Right.
building pedals, it's not like that exactly. It's like it's complete when you turn it on and it works, and you're like, oh, this is great. This sounds great. So that,
That's so awesome, dude. Well, it's great. I loved the fact that you started doing that because you do have a sensibility with like, the way that the way that you sound on stage. Like just like hearing your specific amps, like you and Zane, like in front of me, like I can tell you're intentional about how your guitar sounds versus his guitar, so they blend
yeah,
well. So it makes sense to me because you've got such big ears to be able to like craft something that you want to hear, like something different. Because what your stuff is, it's different than what else is out there. It's like you're not building like Tube Screamer clones and
right. No,
stuff
I
like
don't think
that.
I'd ever do that. Who knows? I mean, I don't. Well, first of all, I watched Rhett Strells. I love his channel. I don't know if you
He
know
was
him,
on
but
here. Yeah, I had
he's
him
a
on
friend of
here actually.
Josh's too. Oh, he
Yeah.
was. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
But he seems like a really nice guy too. I really enjoy watching his stuff. But I think he and I for sure agree on. I've never really loved Tube Screamers. Like it's just there. I wanted to because I love Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right.
So I was like, why would I? So I always, I remember getting one for the first time and trying a bunch of them, and just I never really connected for some reason. Um, and there was a pedal that I love, which was somewhat of the inspiration, partially the inspiration for these Time Machine preamplifiers uh, that I make. But the there was a pedal that I had in the '90s that my mom bought for me that was probably my favorite. I don't even know what it is, like circuitry wise, because I've never opened it up to look, and I know it's all surface mount stuff, which is just a little bit harder to decipher.
Hmm.
Um, but it's the C-Tech Sunny Boy, and it had a rotary selector on it,
Oh,
which it didn't have anything to do with times, but it gave you like song names, um, things that I just love that I connected to a lot more than the Tube Screamer for some reason. And then I also love the Dan Electro Daddio,
I
which
remember that.
Josh told me is actually a Marshall Governor uh, clone.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that. So, but I've never had a Governor, but I do have a a Marshall. What the heck is that thing called?
Bluesbreaker.
Not the Bluesbreaker. It's there are four of them, right? And it's not the Governor of the Bluesbreaker. It's dang it. It's orange, and I
Mm,
bought it because I know we were talking about Jeff Buckley earlier. Well, I will say, I mean, in preparation for some of that stuff, I bought a bunch of his pedals, just
mm-hmm.
not like ones he owned, but ones that he played, just to see kind of all right. And some of it is pretty clearly, yeah. What is that Marshall one called? I don't know why I'm forgetting the name right now, but
I can't remember
it's
either.
one of the yeah.
That's okay. It's for the Jeff Buckley stuff. Because I saw the guitar that you got. That was killing.
Yeah,
That's so cool, man.
it's crazy.
um, for stuff like, you know, for his song, like for like Grace, for instance, like a lot of his clean tones, like you can tell there's a little bit of modulation, obviously, on some of his stuff. Like,
Yeah.
did he use a lot of chorus? Like, what did he normally have on his
Do
board?
you mean like on the record or live?
Yeah. Like on their live too. Like even if you see like live clips, like what's that one DVD concert? Where was that from? Was it from Minneapolis or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, I actually it's kind of insane that I can say, but my I don't know if it's on permanent loan or if it's, but it's very nice that he one of yeah, you're talking about the Metro, the Mystery White Boy Live at the Metro Chicago, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
one of Jeff's friends, a guy named Nathan Larson, who's a musician, composer, producer, he was originally connected to the film when I got the part 10 years ago, which is totally crazy. But
Yeah.
and yeah, it's not, but so, and he actually gave me actually almost 11 years. I can't believe it. But he gave me one of Jeff's pedals, which I still have, which is crazy.
Oh,
And apparently, I haven't found a way to get it to sound necessarily exactly like the way he sound. Like it doesn't. I don't connect the sound to him fully, but maybe I have to figure out. I just haven't experimented with it enough. But apparently, he had like an always on TC Electronic stereo chorus pedal,
that
and
makes
that's what I
sense.
have. I have that, but it's I think he had it set to like the lowest setting or something.
Yeah. It's like when you hear Mark Knopfler, like you can kind of hear a little bit of chorus under that. Just it fattens
Yeah,
up his clean tone just enough, but it's not obvious in your face. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But that, I mean, and talk about preparing for a role, dude. And I told you, I think anyone that could have gotten that role, I couldn't see anyone pulling it off except for you. It's like you already can
thanks.
sing your ass off like him. I'm sure you can do a great impersonation of Jeff Buckley. And your playing is great. You can play all the stuff he did. You have the skills to do that stuff. So like it's a perfect marriage. It's like when, you know, Jamie Foxx did Ray kind of thing. He can play piano. So he didn't have to like
Yeah,
cut
thanks.
away, you know?
Yeah, one of the tricky things that we initially talked about was that with Ray, they were able to use, and I don't know if it's an issue with securing the rights to the master recordings or if it's just a taste thing. But I do know that it was that Jeff's mom and his mom Mary and the camp was pretty adamant that like we wouldn't use any of that. So that was exciting to me too because it yeah, I'd be doing everything, which would be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot of stuff to learn though. But because it's hard to know what you want to put in the film. What we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't at the moment. I'm like, there's a. I think the pandemic is part of the reason. It's just like everything's kind of up in the air with that. So we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, I hope it comes to fruition. I
That'd be
was
great.
I think I told you I had Doug Derryberry on my show
Yeah,
weeks back, and he was in the pit during Spider-Man. I was like, "Oh, is Reeves still on the show?" And you were doing? He's like, "Yeah, man." And then I said to him, I was like, "Oh, do you know anything about this rumors about Reeves doing like the Jeff Buckley biopic and stuff?" He's like, "I don't know, man. As far as I know, I think it's still happening." And I was like, "I hope it
yeah.
happens."
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, like whatever's meant to be. Because yeah, it's yeah. I've always wondered like it's hard to know like when people pass away if they're able if they still care about things being made about them and like because Jeff doesn't seem like the type of person that would be like yeah man make a movie about me. It doesn't feel so I'm kind of
As a
fine
fan of
either
his
way.
music, I
Yeah,
want to see
I
it.
want
Yeah.
I want his mom to get what she wants to do. That his family, I want them to be able to do what they want to do. So that's
Yeah.
whatever that. Yeah.
That's so dope, dude. Well, I hope it comes together. And then really quick before we do our lightning round get down. So tell everybody like the pedal line. I've seen it, but tell them what you are building now because there's a lot of geeky guitars on this channel.
Oh yeah.
Right
Oh,
now.
nice. Yeah, I guess
And,
so. There would be. Yeah.
and real quick, Reeve, is that it? The Marshall Drive Master?
Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you. Yes. Yes. I don't know why that name was slipping me. That's exactly the one. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
And when you
So
turn that all the way up, like getting those eternal life tones when the drive's all the way up, and I forget how I set the EQ, but I was like, wow, this sounds just like the Eternal Life Road version.
yeah. That's awesome, dude. I'm sure. I mean, matching that stuff and playing on that telly, it's probably magic. So
Yeah, and they said they did it quick. They're like, oh man, if we had had more time, we would make it even more like. So maybe I should send it, say, hey, well, maybe we have some more
we
time.
got time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell people the line of pedals that you're currently building.
Yeah. So I mean, during the pandemic, I just started experimenting. Like, I so yeah, I've got some things in the works that I won't mention yet because I haven't. I wanted to get those right, and I've been trying to like. Yeah, I'm still. There are a few things that I'm working on, but the ones that I currently have out are a series of basically 18. You could think of them as either 6 circuits or 18 circuits, but because they're each pedal has three unique circuits within them that are related but different, and um, that basically I'm just obsessed with guitar players and obsessed with. I've always been like this with films as well. Just well, sorry, I'm going on a tangent again, but I've just always been like this with guessing, being tuned and interested in a year in which something was made, like whether it be a
Yeah.
film or like you just look at the street and you go like in a film, or like a piece of news footage from a certain year, and you're like, what year do you think that was? That's probably 92, because I can see the buildings that exist there that are not there anymore or that weren't there before this time, and the clothing with as opposed to 89 or 94. I've just been always obsessed with that kind of thing, and so I kind of put it to use with pedals because yeah, so I've got like a range of tones that for my ears represent uh, a span of about 50 years in recorded music history from 1947 to 1997, and each pedal has like they kind of go in sequence. So actually I got one of them here that I'm finishing, but the one, this one you can see like goes from 1947, 1949 to 1953,
Yeah.
and it's got this high pass low cut control that helps you it helps you match it with like a range of different amplifiers or pickups. Also, I find can make it sound like it's going even further back in time in a way, because a lot of that stuff on those records, they had a very specific, they existed in a very specific range in the frequency spectrum and that's part of what gives you that sound. But it's basically just, yeah, coming up with things that saturate in a way that sounds to me like those years. Like if you play a song from those years on, like, let's say the 1953 circuit, if you're playing a song from 1956, you're going to hear the difference between playing it on the 2 versus the 1. Not that you can't do it, you can do whatever you want, but it's just that's what that's all about. And then the Aviator Fuzz is the other pedal that I have, which I do have one of these here. But this
That's
is
the
again
one that
the back.
I was
This is one
drawn
of the
to.
prototype. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this one is really fun. And one of my favorite things about it, because like I was mentioning Eric Johnson earlier, I actually we got to open for Eric Johnson with Johnny Lang once or twice, and that was really cool. But I kept people would make jokes like, "Oh man, like they're right." I mean, they would say like, "Yeah, he can tell like the battery, like he can tell you what he can tell if a battery is what brand of battery you put in the pedal or something in his fuzz faces."
Right.
And that, but I don't know if that's true, but I do know that it makes a huge difference depending on how much voltage is being applied to whatever circuit you have. And so this allows you to alter. I have it in the circuit in a certain way that prevents it from oscillating, because that's sort of that in the initial trials, I was like, oh wow, why is that happening? Like, it was just when I adjust the voltage. So I don't have it applied to every single transistor, every part of every transistor. So it's, yeah, but it allows you to feel like you can set it to like a 6-volt battery if you want, or like a 7-volt battery instead of 9 point whatever it's going to be.
Yeah,
And
that's dope.
sometimes that sounds really great. Like, sometimes I prefer that sound, and so that, yeah, I like that.
Is that germanium or silicon? I can't remember.
All of the stuff is silicon. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I'm not doing any of the germanium PNP stuff yet, but maybe I will. I mean, I wanted to build that I could. What was that?
I was just gonna say I love silicon, like transistor, like way more than
Yeah.
germanium. I lean on those more, at least.
Do
All my
you?
fuzzes are silicon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I might. I just wanted to make something that I knew I could make a lot of. If it got to the point where things went crazy and it was like, we want, like, So I wanted to be able to just not be able to make, fifth of them something. So that's one of the main reasons I do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's smart. I mean, temperature control wise and everything for musicians playing out in the sun, it makes
Yeah.
more sense. It's just like, I
Yeah,
mean,
I've never experienced that because I haven't played a lot of germanium either. I have one pedal called the Germanium Boy,
mm,
by Dirty Boy Pedals, and noticed changing a lot, but I haven't played a lot of hot stages with that pedal, so I don't. Yeah, I've never.
yeah.
I hear a lot about that, but I haven't experienced it much.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing, man. I've definitely gone to a hot festival stage and I borrowed a Sunface analog man from my buddy, and I had it on the
Oh
board,
yeah,
and it just wasn't, the bias wasn't doing the thing it normally does if I'm at home, you know what I
dang,
mean? It's
that's so
weird.
weird. Yeah.
It's so weird. And then I'll take a pedal my buddy makes. He's based in Burbank, California. He has a company called OCE Pedals. In fact, I
Oh,
should
I think I've heard of it then. Yeah.
yeah, you know what? It's funny because I told Josh about it when he had it on his
Yeah.
show.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like it was funny because he was like, all the cool kids are playing it. And I was like, my buddy Chris was like, he's talking about you, man, because you told him about my pedal. But it's really cool. He makes these really neat.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like a little wrench. It's called the Hardware Fuzz. It's like the wrench fuzz, and it's called the Hardware Series. So he's got
That's
like a
whoa. How is he doing? It looks like it's like branded on the back. Is that like a brand, or is it actually set in?
dude. Yeah. So that's a
So
brand. So
cool.
he didn't brand. It's a logo. It's stamped. But
It looks like a brand. It's cool the way it looks. Yeah.
yeah, but he like distresses them all. He actually, his day job is he's an animator for SpongeBob. Isn't that cool?
Whoa. We
So
met one of those guys. I don't think it's the same one, but we came to one of our shows once, like an animator from SpongeBob.
oh really?
Awesome.
That's awesome, man. But yeah, he's making one that's called the Monkey Wrench. That's like a rat clone kind of thing, and like dude, he's just people are doing so many cool things. That's why I like what you're doing. I like
Yeah.
that your knob choices are fantastic.
Oh,
Like,
thanks. I mean, I love Universal Audio. So it was just like the old consoles or EMI stuff. That's what drew me to those.
yeah,
Just like,
they look great. They look awesome, dude. I wanted to, well, we can do, we're at an hour, so we can do the lightning round get down, and I can let you get back to your life, man. All right, so Reeve, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put on a metronome for a little suspense. We're gonna have, let's put it around 112 BPM. Put it around there. And I got 10 questions for you. Now you can fire through them if you want, or you can give me explanations. I don't care either way. I love explanations, but you don't have to do it. So the first one is always the same. I ask all my guests the same: Lennon or McCartney?
yeah, that's hard. I can't choose. I mean, I would have if you'd asked me. I mean, I'm with McCartney's wide range of musical prowess that he was able to like express within the context of the Beatles and beyond. But in terms of it's so difficult to choose between the two of them. I mean, it's just like I love orchestrations and harmony, and it seemed that Paul was more a part of that during that time period. But John Lennon is just ridiculous. I mean, they're both so great. And I've had the chance to meet Paul, and he's so nice.
I
And
bet.
my dad actually met both of them in the 60 May
Whoa.
12th, 1968. My dad met Paul and John. Then he met John later again.
Man.
So cool. I love them both, and they're huge influences. I mean, I really can't pick. And then you can't leave out George and Ringo, or
Yeah,
George
I
Martin,
know.
or Jeff Emmerich, or any of the guys that recorded that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Tube Screamer or Blues Breaker?
Uh, I will say Blues Breaker because I'm not. I
You
just
know, Tube
haven't
Screamer guy.
connected with the Two Screamer very much. Yeah.
All right. Ravioli or rigatoni?
I guess ravioli. Yeah, I like
Okay.
tagliatelle or yeah, I think that's my favorite. But
All right.
yeah,
On a playground, would you be on the monkey bars or on the swings?
both. Yeah, both. I don't know. It's hard to choose. Both.
335 or telly?
For me, 335. But I hear a lot of people. I know a lot of people go with the telly, and I started on the telly. I started on a Strat, then telly, and then moved to 335. But yeah, I love. Yeah, I gotta say 335.
All right, cool. All right, and if you had to choose one person's life, would you choose Dorian Gray or Benjamin Button?
I wouldn't choose any of them. Yeah, neither one.
Neither one. All right, who's your fave? Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Tom Holland? Who did it best?
It's hard to pick. I mean, it's because growing up with Toby and then being kind of simultaneous with Andrew in a different universe. And actually, we have the same acting teacher, which is really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
But I love. I think they're really onto something with what they're doing with Tom Holland, and like it's cool to see someone who appears to be like who really appears to be the age of, I don't know, he just got a real high school. I know he's now like 25, I guess, but wait, I guess he started so young, and I think they're all fantastic. They're yeah.
Yeah, Tom Holland's definitely been my fave so far. Like he's just put so much heart into that part, Like
Oh
that
yeah, he's amazing, man. He's amazing.
that moment in Infinity War when he's starting to fade and like Tony's got him and he's
I
like,
haven't even seen that one yet. I
oh,
haven't
dude,
because I haven't seen all the Avengers films.
Oh man, you gotta see that stuff. All right, Reeve, Fuzz Face or Tone Bender?
Tone Bender.
Okay. And this is gonna be another hard one to choose between Last Goodbye or Grace. Between those two songs, what would you prefer to play on stage? If you had to pick one Buckley cover.
Oh, Grace. Yeah, I prefer to play Grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
That dude, the harmonic movement in the verses of that song is so beautiful.
And actually, now that I said my answer with it is with Fuzz Face or Tone Bender, I shouldn't have answered that so quickly because I have not played a Fuzz. I haven't played an original Fuzz Face that like blew my mind. And the first Fuzz Face I had was a replica that I just didn't understand when I was a teenager, so I didn't really pursue it. It wasn't. I should try building one of those because, yeah, I haven't even done that yet, which is kind of funny because it's like something that a lot of people start with, I think.
Yeah,
I should probably do that and just see if I really love them or not.
you just got into super complicated circuits like right off the bat. Like,
I think it's because I was just trying to repair stuff, like, and it led me down. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
oh
that's
wow.
awesome.
Like,
So great, dude. And then the last one, Reeve, sometimes is the hardest, sometimes is the easiest for people. But like, if you could take one record and erase it from your memory, like you've never heard it before, like think about like Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like go in,
yeah,
remove the memory of hearing what that whole album sounds like. If you could go back and pick one record that you could erase just so you could listen to it for the first time again and experience it, what album would that be?
I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, I don't love the idea of doing that until you said so you could experience it for the first time. And then I would almost say like that would be so cool for most albums if you could do that. Do that every now and again. So you like, oh wow, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot. I really didn't even think of one because like I remember all the experience, like you mentioned earlier, D'Angelo's Voodoo. I mean, Pet Sounds, any of the Beatles records, Fiona Apple's, particularly the second record for me, When the
Mm-hmm.
Pawn.
Oh my God, that's
Like
such a
all
good
of these, I had big experiences with and they're really like album experiences rather than the track kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or
I
singles,
know it's hard. It's hard. It's like I think about it often because like Spilt Milk is one for me, or like, people think I'm gonna say Pearl Jam 10, but 10 is not my favorite Pearl Jam album. So it's like, there's a lot of
Yeah,
so much music out there in the world now, but I think that ultimately speaking, what I love about that is like the idea of like connecting so much with an album as a whole.
yeah,
That like where was I when I first, it's like the smell thing or like the taste thing, like where was I when I first heard this
yeah.
record, or because when I
Even
first
like,
heard Spilt
what was that? You
Milk,
spilled it, yeah.
I was in this guy's car. It's my friend Jamie, he's a big fan too.
Oh, nice.
um but he played that for me, and I'll never forget being in his car and cruising around town listening to that record. It's like it reaches you. So
Yeah, even I was thinking like something like Tragic Kingdom, no doubt. My
oh
friend
yeah,
actually produced that, and that was a great one too. That's
yeah,
from
there's a lot of good ones, man. But I mean,
I
I'll
used
go
yeah,
with those three that you dropped. Any Beatles record will do.
yeah. I mean, I like them. There's so many that I would it would I just want them to make new stuff. I mean, McCartney's Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. That's another. I love that album,
Me
and
too, man. That's my favorite solo record of his, hands down.
that's kind of the dream where you're like where you come up. Yeah, and I guess it makes sense because Nile Godrich, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nile.
I think it's
But
Nile. Yeah,
yeah, but like that's the dream. I think more than anything that the artist will keep making work that's like whoa. So you keep having first experiences with those artists you love, which
yep.
unfortunately doesn't always happen because I think part of it's the business. It's just it takes a lot of time and sometimes a lot of money to make those things and and people I don't know maybe when they have kids and stuff it just gets tough. Who knows? Yeah.
It
A
does
lot
get
going on.
tough. I can attest to that, my friend.
Yeah.
Um, well, Reeve, dude, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing this, man. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you and like hear your story. And I know everybody else will love this episode too. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. This is really nice.
Yeah, man. Everybody, Reeve, like let them know what's going on right now. You got a lot going on as far as like your acting career and music and everything. So tell them where they can find everything about you.
Yeah, I mean, I do in terms of the social media thing. Instagram seems to be the one that's most interesting to me for whatever reason. So I'm on that a lot. Not as much as some people, um, but yeah, I'm doing 8 shows a week on Broadway at Hadestown, and in between that, I'm building pedals for Quarantine Effects USA, and that's like pretty much that's my work life at the moment,
Yeah,
and
man.
it's great. It's great trying to find the balance between those things. I sometimes wish there were more hours in the day, but I mean that's a silly thing to say because it's time demarcations are somewhat arbitrary, I guess, aside
Right.
from the setting of the sun and the rising. But
Yeah.
I don't know why. It seems like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if there were like 32 hours in a day or something? But probably
Right.
not. It would probably be terrible.
As far as we're all aware, Reeve Carney doesn't sleep. You're just constantly working.
No, I actually do. That's the thing I do. I mean, I have to. I mean, to do the show I'm in now, if I go, I have to average 7 hours minimum. I mean, usually I aim for 8.
Yeah.
So I aim for 56 hours of sleep per week,
That-
and I can get by on 48. But I can't get by on like 40 hours of sleep a week, and some
yeah.
people can. I don't know how on earth they do that.
No, that'll mess up your voice, man. You don't need any of that.
Yeah.
No. Well, dude, thank you so much. You can hang for a second, Reeve. Everybody, thanks for coming by and checking out the show today in the middle of the day. And take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, man.